What do you think the hardest part of game development is? Is it A, figuring out the story, writing all the gameplay elements, how it should work, how it should look, how it should feel? Or is it B, creating all the music, all the assets, all the textures, 3D models? Or is it C, programming the whole thing so it actually functions as a proper game? Or is it D, optimizing it so it can actually run on most things? Some developers say that optimizing is 60% of the game's development, and that's for a reason. If we dumb it down, optimizing has two main principles: performance increase and bug fixes, both of them incredibly difficult to do right. The way performance fixing works in games is that you check every single asset in your game, see how much power it draws, and if it is suboptimal, you play a little game called performance versus quality. Let's say you have a 3D road, fully modeled with every single bump. It's going to look amazing, but it's going to need a lot of power. But if you simply use a plane, then put something called a depth map texture over it, then the game engine will know how to interact with it as if it was a 3D object. The way this works is actually very simple. The depth map texture tells the game engine how high and how deep the surface is at certain points. By this, the light can interact with it, making it brighter at certain points and darker at certain points, giving the illusion of a 3D model. The result? Minimal difference in quality, but incredibly big difference in performance. This is how this performance versus quality game plays out. You decide whether the quality change is worth it, and in this case, it definitely does worth it. Sadly, it is not as easy after this, as there are a lot of components that need power in a game, the hardest one to fix being the code itself, as two completely different scripts might do the exact same thing but at different speeds. So you really need an advanced coder to find where exactly your code slows down and how to rewrite it to make it faster. This is the hardest part for me, as I don't have money to hire an advanced coder and my coding knowledge stops at intermediate C#. Now let's talk a bit about bug fixing. As easy it is to explain what it is, it's just as easy to mess it up. Bug fixing is finding something that doesn't behave as it should, then fixing this issue. This is a lot harder than it sounds, because a lot of times even finding what causes the issue is incredibly difficult. But not just that, once you find the issue and somehow manage to correct it, it usually breaks something else. Believe me, that happens almost all of the time. Okay, so now you know what optimizing is and how it works kind of. But you might ask, what does this have to do with indie developers? Isn't this something that all developers face? Well, yes. But it's the mentality of indie developers that separate them from the AAA side of things. If you think about a poorly optimized game, you think about something like Cyberpunk. Not only did it have poor performance when it came out, it had the most amount of bugs like ever. But if you think about popular indie titles like Stardew Valley, Undertale or Hollow Knight, these games are all made by super small teams and yet they are perfectly optimized. And the reason for this difference is that indie developers don't have an angry marketing team yelling at them 24/7 to finish the game faster so it can be ready for Christmas. Instead, indie devs actually focus on making the game to the best of their ability and not on tight deadlines. And this is not a bad thing, to be fair, as I would much rather wait more than to receive a pile of shit that I paid for. And as much as I hate Nintendo as a company, they are a perfect example for a AAA company that still waits to be perfect. Just think about Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom. These games look amazing, and yet they run on the Switch, which is weaker than most smartphones out now. You might say that these games are full of bugs, but in reality these bugs are hunted for by players, and they don't affect you if you just play the game normally. And as for how I'm doing with my projects, so I've been working on a mobile game recently, not because I want to make mobile games, just to practice making one. And when I finally thought that it looks good enough, let's test it, this happened. Well, fuck. This was the time I realized that the project is far from over. I had to check every model and lower the polygon count, but not just that, I had to lower the textures, then delete them, because who needs them anyways? Then look at all the animations and VFX, rebuild every scene to figure out where the line is. It's been 5 months. I graduated from my high school, I finished all my final exams, and I managed to get the game running all the way from 15 to 25 FPS. If the game is run on an iPhone or on a flagship Android, it runs well, but it still drains a lot of battery. And the only way to make it faster at this point is to decrease the graphics, where it's just not visually pleasing anymore. So I've been thinking on what to do exactly with this project of mine. In one hand, I want to make story games, not mobile games, so who cares if I just drop the whole thing? On the other hand, I worked 6 months on it. And for what? For no validation at all? Like, that's worth it. So here's what's going to happen. I'm gonna release the game on Android for completely free. No charge, no ads, nothing. You can try it out if you want to, and if you guys like it enough, I might start working on it again. And I might even consider releasing it on App Store, because, you know, it costs a lot of money to release something on the App Store. But for now, I want something new, something more exciting. So, in my next video, I'm going to start working on my first story game.